covering point of sale and XZ out for version 8. Now, most of you probably have more experience with point of sale than I do. We're just going to be covering all the different scenarios that might come up at the point of sale and how to deal with those various scenarios. Okay, so first off, let's get into a new receipt. So I'm going to go to POS up on top, then receipts on the side, and then I'm going to click on new. Okay. Now your screens may look a little different than mine. The point of sale screen is probably the most commonly altered screen that we deal with in version 8 because everyone kind of has their own personal preference on what they like. I personally have my screen set up because this particular screen carries most of the default fields that we're going to need. Okay, so with point of sale, you can put a customer name on there or not. It's not a requirement. Okay, so most of the sales that we're going to do today are not going to include a customer, but I do want to include one this first time. So I'm going to type in the first few letters of my last name and then press enter. And you'll notice that I only have one customer in there, and that's not the customer that I typed in. So to add a new customer, you're going to click on the new button. You're going to go ahead and enter in their information. And forgive my typing skills today. I'm doing things a little one-handed today. So now address, that's entirely up to you if you track the address. Okay, if the customer is willing to give it to you, you might as well, get these reversed. Okay. If they are willing to give you this information, then by all means take it. Okay, now my system is set up that I can come down here to zip code and just directly enter in the zip code. And as soon as I press enter, well, I guess my system is not set up that way, but most of yours should be. How you can check that, I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of this and back out of here. I'm going to go all the way back to the main screen. So if you go to options and system preferences, there is a preference that allows you to type in the zip code, and the system will automatically populate the city and state based on that zip code. So if I highlight the word customers, you'll see all the way down at the very bottom of the screen where it says use zip postal code to look up city and state, that needs to have a check mark. Now most typically, it would be very unusual if that was not already turned on in your system. Speaking for myself and knowing how the other trainers here work, most of us always turn that on unless there's a specific reason not to, like maybe you're in Canada or Mexico where this is not going to read international postal codes. That's generally the only time that we turn it off. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and we're going to try this scenario again. So I'm going to go to POS on top, receipts, new, and again I'm going to type in the first few letters of my last name. I don't find that customer, so I'm going to click new. I'm going to enter in my first name. Well, like I said, forgive my typing skills today. Okay, now I'm going to put in the address. And then skip down to the zip code. And now when I type it in, it should do what I expected to do the first time once I press enter. So you'll see that it does populate the city and state for me. Okay. Now, any other information that the customer is willing to give you, by all means take it. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a phone number. Okay. Maybe I put in a birth month or a spouse's name or a favorite vendor. Okay, but that's all the customer, they're tired of giving me their information. So I'm going to leave it at that and save it. And then because this is the customer that I want to see on the receipt, I'm going to click the OK button over here. if you were just manually entering in a customer, just maybe updating your system or something, and you happen to do it through the receipt screen, if you click cancel, it will take you back to the receipt, but it won't put the customer name on the receipt. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and that puts my name on the receipt. Now I'm, depending on how your system is set up, in my case, I have a couple of POS flags. So I want to find out how this particular person heard about me. So I'm going to say maybe they were referred by a friend, okay? Their age group is, I'm going to guesstimate it. I always tell people you don't want to ask a woman how old she is. If she looks like she's in her 30s, but she's in her 50s, more power to her, okay? So choose your, fill in your POS flags if you are set up to use those. Now, what these can be used for is any piece of information that you want to capture about this transaction, whether or not there is a customer on this receipt or not, okay? Now, I have mine set up with a how did you hear, so most typically that is used to track how people are hearing about you so you have a better idea of where to spend your advertising dollars, okay? If you see that you have a lot of referrals or a lot of repeat customers, then maybe you want to do some sort of referral program for the people that refer their friends to come into you. If it's they happen to be walking by and something in the window caught their eye, maybe they saw you on social media, whatever the reason is, if I see that I'm getting a lot of social media, then I'm going to make my presence on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all of that a lot more noticeable. Because one, it's free of charge, it's free advertising, and if that's how most of your customers are finding you, then we want more people to be able to find you, okay? So now age group, you could do any kind of demographic that you wanted. I happen to go with age group, but you could track male or female, or you could track, like Leilani, for you could track whether or not they're a season ticket holder or not, okay? There is a third flag available here if you need it. Any of these flags can be set up to leave it on whatever the last entry was. So when I was done with this sale, how did you hear would automatically default to the friend setting if I set it up to the last flag. We typically use that for customers that use these flags to track weather. Now, if it's sunny right now, chances are in 5 more minutes it's still going to be sunny. So it's one of those that you don't really need to choose how the weather is unless it just suddenly changed, okay? We also have the ability to require that the cashier has to fill in this flag information before they can finish out the sale. So if you have any specific questions about how to use point of sale flags, most definitely go ahead and ask me. And on that subject, if any of you have any questions at any time, please don't hesitate to raise your hand. I will try to keep an eye on when your hand raises, and feel free to type in your question right in the middle of it, and I will try to answer it as soon as possible. Okay? So once I have the customer's name, if I'm going to track it, once I've filled in my point of sale flags, now I'm ready to actually scan the items. Okay? Now, I don't have as much inventory as you guys would have, but let's see how much I do have. Okay? So obviously I don't go up to line 70. There we go. Okay. So these are the 2 items that the customer's going to buy. We're going to start off with a really basic sell first. I'm going to come over here to tender, and this customer is going to pay me cash. Now, in version 8, you enter in the amount that they gave you first, then you're going to enter in the way that they paid you. Now, you may notice that I did not type in the decimal or the zeros. If it is an even dollar amount that they're giving you or that they want you to charge to their card, you don't necessarily need the decimal or zeros, but if you put them in there, it's not going to hurt anything, okay? The computer is going to assume it's $80, and it's going to do the decimal for you. You'll notice as soon as I did that, it immediately came back and showed me what my change was. And I have an undefined of 0. Ultimately, with every transaction, regardless of the situation, regardless of the tender type, this is ultimately what we're trying to accomplish, is getting the undefined to a 0. It's not until that's at 0 that you will get this F11, F12 prompting. F11 updates the sale without printing a receipt. So most typically, I'm sure all of you are used to using the F12 or this print update button over here. For our purposes today, since I don't need or want to print anything out, I'm going to use F11. Okay, it is going to remind me about my change. This is when the drawer pops open. I put the $80 in the drawer and I pull out $16.02. Once I have closed the drawer because I have made the change I need to, I'm going to go ahead and close this window. Okay, and my system, I need to make one more system setting change. I apologize, I thought my system was all set up the way I wanted it to be, but apparently not. Okay, receipt form. I'm going to check this as well. Okay. Okay, back into a receipt. Okay, so this time I don't want to track a customer, so I'm going to have it start. I'm going to have it come down here to the items, and I'm going to enter in my item numbers. In your case, you would more than likely scan a barcode, but in my case, I don't have a scanner hooked up to my computer, nor do I have any barcodes, because my inventory is just in there for me to play around with. Okay? Now, if you need to change the quantity of an item, you can come over here to the quantity field and you can type in the quantity and press enter, and you will see it extends out that price. Okay? Now, another way that you can change quantity is you can, so let's say that we're down here on the bottom and they decide that they want to buy 2 of that top item. I can arrow up to the item number, and then using the 10 key section of your keyboard, that's really critical because it doesn't work with the numbers along the top. I can hit the plus key to increase my quantity or the minus key to decrease my quantity. Okay, quick, easy way to change your quantities. When you're all done, arrow back down to a fresh line and you're ready to scan the next item. Okay, once all the items have been scanned, you're going to go ahead and go to the tender screen, and you can see this is the message they're going to get if you require that this POS flag has an entry in it. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK, and I'm going to come up here and I'm going to mark it social. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to the tender screen. It doesn't have any issue with me doing that. Now in this case, we're going to look at how you would take a credit card. Keep in mind, my system is not set up with integrated credit cards. So this is the way you would see it if you do not integrate your credit cards. For those of you that do integrate with Cayenne or with any other credit card software, I will explain how it would look different for you. So because this is the exact amount that they want to put on their card, I do not have to type it in again. If they wanted me to put $100 on a credit card and then pay the rest in cash, then I would need to type in how much they wanted on the credit card. So I'm going to leave this as is and choose my credit card. Now, if you're integrated, you don't get this message right here. Okay, this is only if you're running your credit cards on a separate Zon unit. So I'm going to choose the card type. Okay, now if you're using an integrated card system, instead of that card type coming up, it's going to come up with a larger window. And that window is going to have a great big authorize button on it. You're going to click on authorize, and then it's going to start communicating with the PIN pad. Okay, from that point forward, all of the promptings are going to be chosen by the customer. They're going to do everything on their side, choose whether it's credit or debit. If they choose debit, they're going to enter in they're going to be prompted for their PIN number. Either way, once the PIN pad gets authorization that that card is good and they've pre-authorized that amount, you'll get a message back on your Retail Pro screen tell you that it's been approved, okay? Now, most of you that do use integrated credit cards, most of you are probably set up that as soon as you have approval, if that approval pays off the receipt, it will automatically print a receipt for you, okay? So, but since I am not hooked up to any PIN pad, I'm going to update this myself, okay? Now, let's look at a split tender, okay? So again, I'm going to put an item or two on the receipt. Let's see if I can't find, okay. So, and I'm going to go up and change one of my quantities. I'm just going to hit the plus key and then arrow back down. Okay. Now, when we get to the tender screen, the customer says, is there any way, and again, I forgot my how did you hear. We're going to go social again. The customer says, you know, is there any way that I can split this between two cards? Or can I put some on my credit card and write you a check for the rest? Honestly, we don't care how they pay for it as long as it gets paid for. Again, remember, we're trying to get our undefined to a 0. So the customer wants to put $100 on their credit card. So I type in 100 and choose credit card, choose my type. Now you'll see my undefined has gone down, but it's not a 0 yet, and that's where I need it to be. So now the customer is going to write me a check. So I'm going to choose check. I'm going to enter in the check number, and that's the amount of the check. Okay, so I click OK. Now everything has been paid for, and my undefined is a 0, so I'm good to update my transaction. Okay. Now let's say that you have a customer that brings in an item that they want to return. I do strongly recommend that you put their name on the receipt. It is very unusual. You could go into almost any retail store, no matter how big or how small, and if you're going to do a return, typically they're going to ask for information. You don't have to be any exception to that. You're doing them a service by accepting their return. They can give you their name so you know who's returning things. Okay? This time I'm going to catch this so I don't get my little message. And I'm going to come down here to item number, and I'm going to put an item on the receipt. Now I'm going to arrow up because I want to return it. Now, again, using the 10 key section of my keyboard, I'm going to hit the minus key twice. Now, you may wonder, why are you hitting it twice when there's only a quantity of 1? Think of your quantities like you would a line chart, where 0 is dead center, and to the left you have negative numbers, and to the right you have positive numbers. The minus sign hit once takes me to 0. The minus key twice takes me to -1. Now, you can hit that minus key twice fairly quick and then arrow down and you're good to go. Okay? So this is all we're going to do is a return. So you'll notice the subtotal is showing that it's a negative number. I'm going to go ahead and go to the tender screen, and you'll notice it does not say undefined 0, because the computer understands that we owe this customer some form of payment back. Now, if they paid you with cash, it's up to you whether or not you want to give them cash back. They paid with a credit card, again, it's up to you whether or not you want to put it back on their credit card. Keep in mind that almost every credit card processor out there, I can't speak for all of them, but all the ones that I've ever worked with, they all charge you a transaction fee every time you swipe the card or you insert the card. So when you're doing a return, your credit card company is going to charge you a transaction fee on that return. And in my mind, that just seems wrong. I'm losing the sale, and I got to pay the credit card company to lose the sale. So I generally recommend, whenever possible, issue the customer a store credit. Yes, you've lost this sale, but this way they have to come back in to use this money again. Again, you know, at a certain point, if the customer adamantly wants it back on their credit card, do what the customer wants. You know, you don't want to lose a customer over a policy. So, you know, use your best judgment, but whenever possible, I do recommend store credit. Now we're at undefined of 0, and I get my F11, F12, so I'm going to go ahead and update this. Okay? Now, I'm going to go ahead and put my name back on there. I'm going to mark my how did you hear. And now I'm going to go ahead and buy a few more items. Okay? Now, those are the items I want to buy. When I go to the tender screen, you'll notice right here, it shows my store credit amount. So as a cashier, I'm already prepared that the system is going to ask me if they want to use their store credit. And that is a system preference that I turned on. If you would rather that the cashier does not let the customer know they have a store credit for whatever reason, you are relying on the customer to keep track of it, then you would make sure that this setting is turned off. Personally, for me, I believe that it's a good piece of customer service for you to keep track and to make them aware of it. I've seen many, many times where customers gone out and spent more money when they realize that they have some store credit. So, you know, the more we can get them to spend, the better off we're going to be. So I'm going to go ahead and use my store credit. Now that took the $31.99 right off the top, but it still leaves me with a balance of $63.98. Now most customers at this point are going to feel like they're getting a good deal because they had originally planned to spend $95. Now they only have to spend $63.98. So let's just say, for argument's sake, that they're going to write a check for this. Okay. And I'm going to click OK. Now we're at undefined of 0 again. So I'm going to go ahead and F11 to update, and I'm ready for my next cell. Now, if you're doing an exchange, okay, you're going to do the same basic concept. You're going to put the item that they're returning on the receipt and the item that they are buying on the receipt at the same time. Now I'm going to arrow up to my first line item and hit the minus key twice. And now you'll notice it's a complete wash, okay? They're returning for the same amount that they're buying. Now, even though there's no money that's going to exchange hands, it is important that you still go to the tender screen and you update it, because I need this line item to take that item back into the inventory, and I need this item to come out of my inventory. So even though there's no money exchanging hands, you still want to tender it out. Okay. Still want to tender it out, and you'll notice we immediately get our F11, F12 option. Okay, I update that cell, print the customer their receipt. That receipt shows that they did an even exchange, and they walked away with a smaller, different color. Okay. Now, let's talk about gift certificates. Okay, that's always the fun one. How do I sell a gift certificate? They don't get sold often enough that most people remember how to sell a gift certificate. If you want to track the customer that is buying the gift certificate, absolutely put their name on the receipt. Okay. Now, keep in mind that when you're selling a gift certificate, you're not actually selling anything. All you're going to do is you're going to take one form of tender, a gift certificate, and maybe that gift certificate's worth $100, or they're going to give you a $100 bill or put it on their credit card for $100, and you're going to give them back an equal amount in the form of a gift certificate. Okay? So if you're selling it and that's all you're selling, you had somebody walk into your store, they've looked around a little bit, but they're buying it as a gift and they'd rather have the person pick out their own gift, you're going to go directly to the tender screen. You're not going to put any items on the receipt at all. Okay? You're going to go directly to the tender screen. Now, what we recommend is enter in the amount of the gift certificate as a negative amount. And the reason that we do this is primarily for the times that somebody is paying cash for a gift certificate, because if I entered in $100 in cash, the computer would assume that their change is going to be in cash, and it's not. Their change is going to be in the form of a gift certificate. But the problem is if your cashier does not catch that, then your drawer is going to be off at the end of the day when you do your counting. Okay, so we're going to put in negative $100 and choose gift. I'm going to enter in the gift certificate number, okay, and click OK. Now the computer goes, okay, I'm okay with giving them change in the form of a gift certificate once they pay me the $100 that they owe me. So I'm going to go ahead and do cash, and you'll see it's just an exchange of money. No different than me giving you a $1 bill and you give quarters. You have not sold any merchandise or made any profit. The customer is not walking out with any merchandise. All you're doing is exchanging one form of paper worth $100 for another form of paper for $100. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and update this gift certificate. Now, I do want to show you how it would look if you don't enter in a negative amount first. So let's say I want that $50 gift certificate and I choose cash. See how it automatically made the change cash? Well, what the cashier would need to do, if they've done this, is arrow up here and press the delete key. Now the computer goes, okay, now I'm confused. I don't know how you want this over-tendered amount given. I can then choose the gift certificate and put in my gift certificate number. And now the process, or what you see on the screen, is exactly the same as what you had before. It's a complete wash, but the cashier had to go through a little bit more trouble to undo the change in the form of cash. So that's the main reason that we suggest that you enter in the change amount as a negative amount first and then show how they paid for it. Okay? Now, let's say that the customer is in your store and they are buying a variety of items, although I don't think I have any variety in my system. And when they go to check out, they say, oh, you sell gift certificates? Can I also get a $50 gift certificate? Okay, so I'm going to enter in negative 50 because that's what they told me they wanted, and I'm going to choose gift. Okay, I enter in my gift certificate number, click OK. Now my new undefined total has increased. $63.98 was for merchandise, $50 of it is the gift certificate. So the customer actually owes me $113.98. Now I'm going to go ahead and choose credit card, and I'll choose my MasterCard, and then I'm going to go ahead and update the sale. So that particular transaction not only had merchandise on it, but it also had a gift certificate on it. Okay? Now, I have a customer come in and they want to use their gift certificate. They buy an item that is well under their gift certificate amount. So before I get caught again, let me go to the tender screen and they hand me their $100 gift certificate. Now, typically what I recommend is enter in the whole amount of the gift certificate and then choose gift. And the reason that I say that is if I leave it at the amount of the gift certificate and I choose gift and I put in whatever number it was, I don't have what I would have to do is cross off the amount on the gift certificate and calculate what the new amount is. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to enter in the full amount of the gift certificate, okay, and I'm going to enter in the gift certificate number, okay. That way the computer knows that that amount's been over-tendered. Now I can issue a new gift certificate if I choose to, or I can issue them store credit. In this case, I'm going to issue them a new gift certificate. It's a high enough amount that I'm going to give them another gift certificate. Okay? So $31.99 purchase paid for with a $100 gift certificate. They get a new gift certificate when I give it back to them. And the computer's done the calculation for me. I don't have to figure it out. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and F11. Okay? Now, let's say that an item comes up to the register that has no tag on it. Okay? You have no idea what that item, what item number that item is. Now, you can actually, if you know the description of the item, for most of you, you can type in the first word of the description. But what most people would do, because not everyone is set up that way, you can go to Choose Edit Items, and you can locate, I'm going to add something to my screen real quick. There we go. Okay. Okay, so I can come into the inventory and using my search or my filtered view, I can narrow down the search that I'm looking for. Once I narrow it down, I can highlight the item in question and click OK, and that brings it back to the receipt. Now, I believe that I have my system set up, we'll find out here in just a second, that I can type in, nope, I don't. Okay, so I didn't remember what my descriptions were, so I wanted to take a look at them, but I don't have my system set up for that. So, but that's how you can find an item that has lost its barcode. If you have a similar item, go grab it, but know, especially if this is an item that comes in different sizes and or different colors, each color and size typically is going to have its own SKU. So even though I went over and I pulled the size 22 off the shelf, if I need the size 8 and I use item 24, it's going to give me another 22. And although I can come over here and say 8, that doesn't change the item number that it's going to deduct the quantity from. So it is very, very important that if you're going to use another item as a guideline, make sure that that is in fact the right item number for it. Okay? Now let's say that this particular customer is going to get a discount. They brought in a coupon that maybe I put out in a mailer. Okay, I'm going to come here to the discount percent, and I'm going to type in her discount. Okay, now your system should all pop up with a reason why window. My system is not set up, and I apologize for that, but normally at the point of pressing enter here, you're going to get a pop-up window that gives all of your different discount reasons. So when we're done with this sale, I'm going to go set that up and show you again. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and tender this out, and we're just going to say it was a credit card, and they went with Amex. I'm going to update this, and let me go ahead and back out of here, and I'm going to go back into System Preferences. This is one of the reasons that when you first start using Retail Pro, whether you're upgraded from an older version or your first version you ever used was this version 8, this is the main reason why we go through preferences first, so we can make sure that everything gets set up the way we want. Okay, so I'm just going to say it's because it was on sale. Okay, let's say because it was damaged. Maybe a military discount. Now, the only problem with these discount types, you can see you're limited to 8 different reasons, but more importantly, you're limited to 6 characters. So sometimes you have to be a little creative with the way that you do this. So maybe you offer an employee discount as well. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and I see some other settings here I want to turn on. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. And we're going to look at that discount window again. Okay, so POS and receipts, and then new. Okay, I'm going to choose how they heard about us. I'm going to put a couple of items on the receipt. I'm going to give a discount to one of these, okay? And maybe I'm discounting it because if you buy two, I'll give you 10% off one of them. Since they're the same price, it doesn't really matter which one gets the 10%. And as soon as I press enter after typing in the 10, it wants to know why I'm giving that discount. So I'm going to choose sale, and you will see that the receipt price changes because of the 10% off. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and go to the tender screen, and we're going to say that they're going to use a credit card. Let's actually pretend that they're going to use two credit cards. So I'm going to cancel this. I'm going to enter in the amount they want on the first credit card, and then I'm going to choose credit card again for the second half of it. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and update it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put my name on here. Okay, I'm going to put a couple of items on the receipt. Okay, now this time I'm going to give a discount off the bottom of the receipt, off the entire total. This is what we call a global discount. These up here are considered line item discounts. Now, depending on how your system is set up, when you give a global discount down here, it's going to take the discount from down here and spread it evenly on an evenly weighted basis over the line items. So I'm going to give a 25% discount. Now you can do a percentage over here or a dollar over here. As you can tell, if I change this over here, it changes this over here. Okay. Now, you'll notice when I gave that discount that no discount window popped up. That discount reason window only pops up when it's a line item discount. And that's one of the reasons why I typically have it spread if I'm giving a global discount. So as soon as I click on the tender button, it's going to, after I choose my how did you hear, it's going to ask me for the reason why I'm giving the discount. Okay? Maybe it's a sale that we're running. What I want to show you, the discount has disappeared from down here, but now it's sitting up here. Now you may wonder, because I gave a 25% discount, why is it showing 25.01? The main reason that that happens is because when it's splitting up that discount amount, remember it was $15.99. I had two items on here. There is no way to evenly divide 99 by 2, okay? So therein is the problem, that it can't issue a half of a cent or a quarter of a cent. So it actually gives a discount of 25.01, so it can take it out a little bit further and do the math, okay? Typically speaking, we do not show that to the customer. Most typically what they're going to see on their receipt is, let me find the field I want. I've gotten kind of used to version 9 where these are all in alphabetical order, so I have to slowly go through them instead. Okay. There we go. So what the customer sees on their printed receipt is what we call a rounded discount percent. So most customers are not going to complain if they see 25.01 as their discount, but I have seen it happen on more than one occasion where if this comes back and it says 24.99, the customer is going to question it. They're going to wonder why you didn't give them their full 25%. To avoid that coming up, we just automatically try to use the rounded discount, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and go to tender. And the primary reason that I put my name on this receipt was for those of you that do in-store charge accounts, meaning you're going to allow them to take the merchandise today and you're going to bill them for it later. That is referred to in Retail Pro as a charge receipt. So I'm going to go, but in order for this charge receipt to be available, I have to have a customer name on there, and there is a system preference that it will only allow you to use the charge tender if the customer has been marked as an AR customer. And I'll show you where that setting is. Okay? So I click on charge. I haven't set a credit limit, so my credit limit right now is 0. I definitely want to override that. Okay? Then it brings up what their terms are. Okay? Now, you can default various terms in here that you can pick from, or you can just simply type in what their terms are going to be. Okay? So, as far as the computer's concerned, they paid you today. Now, you and I know that no money exchanged hands, but they're going to walk out the door with some merchandise. This is also a convenient way to do employee sales if you do payroll deductions. Ring up their transaction as a charge tender, and then when payroll comes around again, you're going to run a report and see who owes you money, and that comes directly out of their payroll as a payroll deduction. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and F11. I'm going to back out to the main screen one more time. We're going to go into Options and System Preferences. Okay? If you're going to do a charge tender, it is important that you have a fee set up for payment on account or received on account. I tend to use POA. Okay? For payment on account, but you could use anything that you wanted there that made sense. You are limited to 6 characters, though, so you have to be a little creative, and that's why we go with the acronym. One other thing, under the customer heading, you'll notice down here at near the bottom, there is a limit charge tender to AR customers only. If you check that box, that particular customer has to have their AR field in the customer database marked as either yes or export. If it's by default, everybody is marked to no. So if it is marked to no, that customer will not be allowed to charge. Okay? And that's kind of a good thing to set up. So the manager or whoever makes that decision can mark the customers that they've approved for an account, for an in-store charge account. Okay? Okay. The reason that I added in that POA is, let's say that it is now payroll time, okay, or it is time that customer came in and they come in to pay their bill, okay? So first thing I usually do is I put their name on the receipt so I can then go into their file and I can look at their history and see how much their charges were. Unfortunately, it does not keep a running tally of their charges, but I see that they charged $47.98. Now that I know that, I'm going to go back to the receipt and I'm going to come down here to the fee field and I'm going to type in 47.98. Now you'll notice this time I definitely used my decimal point because there was change involved. As soon as I press the enter key, it's going to pop up for me to choose the reason why I'm entering a fee. This is a payment on account. Now, once that's in there, I'm going to go to the tender screen. Gets me every time. I'm going to go to the tender screen, and I'm going to show how they made their payment. So maybe they came in and they used their credit card to pay off their charge receipt. Okay? They've paid it off. I F11. That will now show in their history as well. Okay? So I don't know if any of you offer charge accounts, but that's the way that you would handle a charge account. Okay? You could also use this fee field down here if you're going to take money out of the drawer. You would want to set up a fee type of paid out or a fee type of paid in. But if you're doing a paid out, you're going to enter in a negative amount and press enter. I'm just going to use POA because I don't want to go set it up. Okay. And now when I go to the tender screen, it knows that I'm going to be I'm going to be taking some money. I'm going to be taking some cash. So I click on cash. Now the computer is going to understand that you're going to be $20 less than what your sales account for. Okay? So by tracking your petty cash through the register this way, you're able to leave yourself an audit trail. It will also update the Z out, and the Z out knows that you did that as well. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and F11 and close this window. Now, let's say, for argument's sake, that you have a customer. Okay, I'm going to add a field. I'm going to add some fields onto my screen that I don't have. Okay, so. Okay, so I'm going to add a shipping field, and I'm going to. Okay, so I want this. I want full name. There we go. 1, 2, 3, and I want zip code. Okay, and then I'm going to drag this out here. Okay, so I'm going to bring this up. Now, just because I can't stand to not see things lined up, I am going to clean this up a little bit. Okay. I want to do this one. Level font. Okay, there we go. I'm going to go ahead and save this. There we go. Okay. So let's just say, for argument's sake, that this customer is buying a few items, but they want these items to be shipped to their sister across the country. Okay, now a couple of things are going to take place. One, you're going to charge them a shipping amount. You're not going to ship it out of the goodness of your heart. Okay, so you're going to charge them shipping. That's going to add to their total. If you are shipping within your state, most states require that you charge them the sales tax. If you are shipping out of your state, most states do not require that you charge the sales tax. Check with whoever you turn to as far as tax laws. Find out what your state's tax laws are. I know what California expects, but I can't speak to any other state than California. Okay? So what you would do is you would change their tax area, which I don't have a tax area set up, but you would change it to out of state if your state does not charge tax. But you also need to know where you're going to ship it to. So you're going to add in the shipping customer to your database if they are not already in there. I'm just going to go with my Jane Doe user, and that's where they want it shipped. Okay? So again, if you're shipping it, there's a few things that you're going to need to touch on. You need a shipping amount in there. You might need to change the and you need to know who you're shipping it to. Okay? So once all of that is done, you're ready to tender it out. Okay. And let's just put this on, let's do $50 on a credit card. And we'll do the rest in cash. Okay? We'll F11, and we're ready for the next sale. Now let's say that you have a customer come in and, let's go 16. There we go, and 12. And for whatever reason, the customer needs to step out of line. Maybe they got an important phone call. Maybe something caught their eye across the room. Whatever their reason is, they tell you, hang on a second, I'll be right back. Almost invariably, it seems to always happen when there's a long line behind them. It very rarely seems to happen when the store is really slow and you can just kind of stand there and wait for them to come back. In those cases, when you do have a line, put this customer on hold. Okay, you can help the next customer ring up their sale. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and ring up a sale. Just going to keep it simple. Okay, and then F11. Now that customer has come back. You'll notice the hold button now says held. So you're going to go into held and you're going to unhold the transaction that's in there. Now it is important that you understand if you have more than one point of sale computer, they have to go back to the computer that it was put on hold at. Okay? In this particular version, that is the case. When and if any of you decide to upgrade to version 9, that is no longer an issue. They can go back to any register. Okay? But that holding actually encouraged her to buy something additional. Okay? So you add that onto her receipt, and then you go to tender it out. Okay? Now, even at this point, anything can be changed about the receipt. Even at the point, up until the point that you actually use the F12 or the F11 key or this print update key, anything can be changed at this point. Okay? You could go back and add another item. Okay? So I just I come to the end here and press enter. I get a fresh line. Okay, I put another line on there. I go back to tender. Now there's an undefined amount for that new item they just handed me. So now I take another credit card and everything's paid for again. Okay? You can delete tenders and start all over again if you choose to. All I did there, I'm going to do like this. All I did there was arrow up and delete, arrow up and delete until I had it back to where I wanted it. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and run this through. Okay? So any questions about anything that I've gone over, any situation that you're not sure how to handle and I haven't covered it yet, I'm going to unmute everybody right now so I can hear your questions. Okay. Anyone have a question at all? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody back and we'll go ahead and move forward. Okay. Now, I do want to point out there are a few other buttons here on the side that you might find are helpful. This price lookup button, if somebody comes up to you and they say, how much is this? Most of the time it's not that they can't read the price, although sometimes it is. Most of the time it's not that they can't read the price. What they're trying to find out is how much is it going to be with tax. Now, you can use this if you only need to look up one item at a time. So I can type in the SKU, press enter, and it shows me the price and the price with tax. If I had a tax rate set up, this would be a different amount. If you live in a state where there is no sales tax, it'll look just like I have. Okay? And you can tell the customer out the door it's going to be $31.99. Okay? Now, if they bring up an armful of items and they want to know how much it's going to be, there is no quick, easy way to do that. We do usually recommend that you put all the items on the receipt to give them a total, and then if they decide that they don't want to do it, cancel the receipt. If they're going to go and do more shopping, put it on hold. And then you can pick up that receipt again. Okay? You also have the ability of, when you're in the receipt screen, to click over into the sales order screen, which is where your customer orders, special orders, and layaways would be. Okay? So, if somebody comes in and they walk up to the counter and they say, so-and-so called me and told me that my special order was in. Rather than backing out to the main screen and going into sales orders from that direction, you can click on the sales order button right here, and it takes you into your list of sales orders. Okay? You find the sales order, then you would basically bring it back over to the receipt. Okay? So for those of you using multiple price levels, this does allow you to change the price level that you are using. Okay? And whether or not you want to apply it to all the items you've already put on here. The few people in here that I do recognize, Erin and Leilani, I can tell you firsthand that neither one of you are using multiple price levels. Okay? So any questions about any of these extra buttons over here? Okay? So what I'd like to do now is let's look at the XZ out. Okay? Now let's say that you have a customer and they ask you, is there any way that I could get a gift receipt for these items? Okay? If you were on a new receipt, the last receipt that you rang up should be the last one that you see listed there. Okay? And if that's the receipt that you need, you're good. You can click on gift receipts. But if they came back in later and they said, is there any way that I could get a gift receipt? I bought something earlier today and I forgot to get a gift receipt. You can always find their receipt and then highlight it and click on gift receipts. Okay? Now with gift receipts, you're going to get an option. Basically, it's showing you everything that they bought. So the first question that you want to ask the customer is, do you need a gift receipt for everything? If they say, no, just for this item and this item, okay, we're good. We check off the items they need it for. The second question is, do you want a separate gift receipt for each of those items, or do you want them all on one gift receipt because they're going to the same person? This is very unusual to find in retail. I know it frustrates me anytime I go and buy something for a baby shower, because I typically, my go-to baby shower present is a diaper bag with all the goodies inside of it, the pacifiers and the bottles and the wipes and what have you. And so even though I might have bought 9 or 10 different things, they are all going to the same spot. I want a gift receipt for all of them because I may not have bought the right bottle or the right pacifier or the right diapers. So I want the mother to feel comfortable returning whatever she doesn't want to use. Okay? But having them all on one, instead of having to give her 9 or 10 gift receipts and her figure out which gift receipt goes with which item, really frustrates me. So, and I've asked a lot of the big box stores, do you have any way to put all of them on one gift receipt? And I have been repeatedly told no. So just know that might surprise some of your customers when you ask them if they want a separate gift receipt for each item or if it's okay to put them all on one receipt. Okay? For those of you using the integrated gift cards, this EFT Settle button should be nothing new for you to see. That is how you settle your credit cards. Okay? For those of you that are not using integrated credit cards, you know how to settle your credit cards on the Zon unit, but I do recommend that you do not settle your credit cards until you run your Z out, or at least an X out. Okay? So we're going to back out to the main screen, and we're going to go to the XZ out. Now I'm going to make sure that I can do a preview of this first. Knowing how many settings I was missing earlier, I have a feeling I'm probably missing this one too. Okay, I'm going to come down to printing, come over here, all the way down, and then slightly back up. I'm glad that I looked. So I'm going to set this up, Now I'm going to go with a laser size because I'm printing to a laser size printer. But if you were at the point of sale, you might want to point it to the receipt printer and use, typically we like to use this 38 because it's just slightly, it's a little more narrow than the 40. With the 40, we tend to lose the cents off of the dollar amounts. So we do like to use the XE out 38, okay? But I'm going to leave mine on the laser with cards, and I want to check off the preview box, okay? So now I'm going to go point of sale, XE out. Now an X out can be ran anytime you want to see where your sales are. Basically, it is the same exact report as the Z out, except it doesn't ask you to count the cash in the drawer. Okay, it's just going to give you totals of cash, totals of credit cards, totals of everything. Okay, so the X out you can run as often as you want, whenever you want. You don't have to worry about opening the drawer and counting it in the middle of the day. If you can do a Z out, the X out is going to be a breeze. Okay, now with the Z out, this right here is a filter. Okay, the only thing that you really need on the filter is the date, and you'll notice that it's set for the word today. That means what's going to happen as the computer date rolls over, so too does the date that I see here. A lot of times what happens is somebody comes in here and changes this to a different time frame, and when they do that, it reverts it. Once you finish this, it'll revert it back to, it'll change it to a fixed period. So it'll look like this. Okay? Now the problem is, tomorrow when I come in, it's still going to be showing 4/1/2018, and the next day, and the next day. So if you get a complaint from your cashiers that the date is not correct on the Z out anymore, the first thing that I want you to check, come in here and make sure it's set for the word today. That way it will continue to roll over. Okay? Now, if there is an entry in the cashier field, it is absolutely critical that you take that name out of there. Because what's going to happen if you don't, you're only going to see the sales for that one person instead of everything that happened on that drawer. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to check these all off so I can show you what they look like. Okay. So I'm going to save these changes. Now, one other troubleshooting thing I want to show you in the X and the Z out is if for whatever reason, all of a sudden, your tax breakout stops showing up at the top, it's because underneath options and appearance, the developer checked the least used setting as the default. Very rarely, except for maybe Leilani, very rarely do we see value-added tax used in America. It's very common in Europe, but what value-added tax is if you want to have the price on your tag include the tax in that price. So let's say you charge $40 for an item. What you're actually going to keep of that, the customer pays you $40, what you're actually going to keep and not have to pay to the government is it comes off of that. So whatever your tax rate is comes off that $40, you're left with the difference, okay, with what's left. So you want to uncheck this box right here for most people and then go ahead and click OK. Now I'm going to go ahead and save my changes, and I'm going to come over here to the Z run option. Okay, and I'm going to let it go ahead and run for today. Now, in the dollars begin, I'm going to enter in how much I start with in cash in the drawer. Okay, now I'm going to come over here to the leave. I know I want to leave $250, but now I need to count how much I have in the drawer. So I'm going to open up the count, and I'm just going to keep this simple, like I said, because I'm a little typing challenged today. Let's just go 5 for each of these, okay? That's not going to work. There we go. That should take us over. Okay. Now I'm not going to balance, obviously, because I just made that up. But I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now I'm going to verify my non-currency. Okay. So it says that I have 2 checks, and I can see that the 2 checks are there and they're marked. I have 10 credit cards. I see they're all in here. They're all marked. I have 1 charge, 2 store credits, 4 gift certificates. Okay? I verify that I have all of those things. Now keep in mind, typically you're only going to be able to verify credit cards and checks because there's not a piece of paper in the drawer for the charge or the store credit or the gift certificates that you sold. The ones you redeemed will be in the drawer, but the ones that you sold, which is 3 out of the 4, those 3 are not going to be in the drawer to compare against. So just know that most of yours will be pre-checked. It's more for informational purposes. So now if I have an extra credit card slip or I have an extra check or something extra, I can insert it down here at the bottom. And when I insert, it wants to know what I'm going to insert. Now, whatever you choose, because Retail Pro does not have that, it is going to show that you don't balance in that particular area. Okay? So I don't want to do it because I want to balance everywhere but cash. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now I typically like to have my cashiers put their name in the remarks field, because remember, I had you take the cashier name out of the filter. This way I at least know who to go back to and talk to if I have questions. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Big surprise there, I don't match in dollars. I would have been really surprised if I had, but I want to continue anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and click continue and let the system reconcile. And it's going to let me know. I'm going to open this in a window so we can all see it. Okay. So what I'm seeing is here is my sales total. Here's the total of my returns and the net of that number. Okay. This really, if the owner is calling you and wants to know how sales are looking today, this is the number you want to give them, because you don't get to keep the shipping. You don't get to keep the tax if there was tax up there, but you do the $873.32 is what you sold today. Okay. Then you'll see any shipping charges. You'll see this fee. Now remember, the fee was that payment on account, and we see that further down. Okay. So this next section I always refer to as the net section, because you'll notice they all say net before it. Keep in mind, we know we did a store credit, but yet it's telling me 0. The reason it's telling me 0 is because it is the net of that number. I gave out the same amount in store credit as got used in store credit. Okay? When I take a positive and a negative of equal value, it equals 0. That's the net. Okay? So don't get overly hung up on this, because if you go looking for that one transaction, like the gift certificate, I don't have a gift certificate for 168.01. Well, that's correct, I don't. I sold 3 gift certificates totaling $200, and then 1 gift certificate got used for $31.99. Okay, so, but if I didn't know that off the top of my head, I would go looking for this gift certificate because it's an odd amount. When did I sell a $168 gift certificate? Don't get hung up on that. Know that you will see a breakdown further down. Okay, now then you'll see all of your fees. Okay, then you'll see all of your different discounts. Beyond that, you see how many sales transactions you did, how many return transactions you did. That does include exchanges. So if there is a negative quantity put on a receipt, it is going to show up as a return. We didn't take any SO deposits, we didn't reverse anything, and we didn't do any cash drops. Okay? Now we get down to the section that if you're not going to balance 99% of the time, this is where it's going to be. Okay? So we took in cash, $258.98. We paid out in returns and change given, $36.02. We started with $250 in the drawer. So when you take the $258.98 less the $36.02 plus the $250, the computer says we should have $472.96 in the drawer. Okay, but you'll notice I counted $288.05. Okay. Now that count, you'll see right underneath the count field, it says short, and I'm short $184.91. Now this line will say short, over, or balance. Obviously, we always hope to see balance there, but we all also know that that doesn't always happen. So if you don't balance, you can go back and recount. And if I was $184 short, you can guarantee I'm going to go back and count that drawer. Okay, if I'm 19 cents short, 3 cents short, then it becomes a judgment call for the manager or the owner if they've set, a certain threshold. I said I'm going to leave $250, but because I don't balance, I'm not going to pay attention to my deposit this time around. Okay? Beyond this, I see all of my counts, and I start to see my check entries. I'm going to go to the second page. I see the rest of my checks. Then I see my all cards total. This is the number that you want to match up to your Zon unit before you settle it. Okay? If you're integrated 99.9999% of the time, those numbers should match. If you're not integrated, it's not uncommon for those numbers not to match, and it's usually because something's been transposed on one side or the other. Okay? Then you're going to get a breakdown. That $721, $58.79 was an Amex, $193.95 was MasterCard, and $468.69 was Visa. Those three add up to the $721.43. Then I see the total of my charge. I also see a breakdown of my store credit. Now I know why it said net zero. I took in the same amount that I gave out. Okay? Keep in mind when you're looking at this number, paid in, anytime you're looking at paid in, that's money going into your drawer. That's how they paid for their sale. Paid out is going to the customer. It's leaving the store. Okay? Then we come down a little further. We see how we came to be at $168.01. I took in, someone paid me $31.99 in the form of a gift certificate. But I sold $200 in gift certificates. Okay? Now, my net and my count are the same, but I do balance. Lastly, you're going to see those listings that you saw when you went through and everything was pre-checked. And finally, you see the name of the person that actually ran the Z out. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close out of this Z out, and I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to go to Z out. I don't need to cancel anything, so I'm going to go to right to Z run. I still have my 250 in there, so I'm now going to count, and I cheated. I wrote down how many I needed, so I'm doing it the simple way, okay? There we go. I click OK. All my credit cards, everything's already verified so that I don't need to check anything. I go ahead and put my name in here and click OK. Now imagine that. I'm balanced to the penny. Surprise, surprise. Okay? So, but I wanted you to see that it does show balance if you balance. And if you balance to the penny, then you know that this is the deposit is the amount you're going to pull out of the drawer to leave behind your leave amount, in this case, $250. Okay? So, any questions about the Z out? Okay, any questions about anything at all? As long as you have me on the phone, any questions that I can answer for you? Okay, well, I'm judging from the silence. That means everybody's good. So I am going to thank you once again for joining our webinar today. It will be up on YouTube later today. We'll also send you a link to that. Just for the fact that you signed up, we will send you a link to that YouTube video. Again, thank you for joining me, and feel free to join us for any upcoming webinars. Our webinars are listed on our website under the training area, support and training, and you are welcome to sign up for any webinars that we have up there. Make sure that you focus on the ones that are V8, unless you're curious about version 9 and like to sit in on one of those, which you're more than welcome to. Okay? So I hope everyone has a great afternoon, and we will talk soon. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.